People in Syria's Afrin celebrating the arrival of pro-government forces who've been deployed to defend the region against the Turkish offensive. The demonstrators gathered in the main square of Afrin waving the Syrian flag and shouting slogans in support of the government. Afrin has been under attack by Turkey since last month. Ankara regards the Kurdish YPG militants in the region as terrorists and a threat to its borders. The Syrian government has condemned the Turkish military incursion, describing it as a violation of its sovereignty. Turkey has warned that if Syrian troops try to confront Turkish forces, they will get fired at. It will be the first time Syria and Turkey engage in a major confrontation if a showdown really does take place on the battlefield.
I think it's very important, and that's what many media outlets, especially in the West, fail to notice, is that this is not. This is always described as a conflict between Turks and Kurds, or between Turkey and Kurdistan or Rojava, or however they call it. But it is important to realize that this is in fact a conflict that plays out in Syrian soil against Syrian citizens in a Syrian city, in a Syrian district of Afrin, which is in a Syrian province in northern Syria. So that is why it is very important and very logical for Damascus to intervene and to stop the Turks, because it doesn't matter if they're Turks or Americans or any other sort of foreign invaders, but the Turkish forces here are the invading party. They are invading Syria, and so they must be stopped by the Syrian army and by the Syrian government loyal militias, because that is just the duty of any country, to protect their own citizens and to protect their own nation and their own territory.
The complicated Syria conflict has another player which is acting negatively according to others involved in the war, the US. Turkey and Russia, the other actors in Syria, along with Iran, which helps the Syrian government in its fight against terrorists, all regard the US role as negative. Washington has been arming Syria's Kurdish militias known as YPG. Before Daesh's defeat, the US said it was helping the Kurds to fight the terror group. Now it claims it's arming them to prevent a resurgence of Daesh. The other players in Syria have always had serious doubts about US sincerity in this regard. With the landscape at the battlefield having changed, some believe that Turkey would be better off if it reached an agreement with the Syrian government on the Kurds without the US interference. The Syrian government now has the absolute upper hand on the ground, and Turkey says it's in Syria to carve out a buffer zone to protect itself against the YPG. Ankara considers the group an offshoot of the PKK, the separatist militant organization fighting the Turkish government.
I think that would definitely be the best solution, because we have seen, especially in the Astana process, that if Turkey wants to, they can definitely be a reliable partner in talks with Syria. So when in the Astana process, when they talked about solving the conflict together with Syrian allies, Iran and Russia, that they can indeed reach something good, something great even. Of course, it is important that they do not follow the lead of the United States, and we have seen that Turkey is breaking free a little bit of US control, because it is obviously not wanted by the United States that the Turks are now attacking their YPG and SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces allies.
Syria has said it will never relinquish 1 inch of its territory. Sooner or later, the Syrian government will seek to take over the areas under Turkish occupation or under the YPG's control. The army has already defeated a plethora of terror groups, including Daesh.
Turks currently are looking at neutralizing what they call the Kurdish threat. But let's assume that at some point they do achieve that goal, which will take a long time, but let's assume that. Do we think that Russians and the Iranians and their allies in the Syrian government are just going to allow Turkey to step in and have a sphere of influence, an area of operation in northern Syria? They know that if Turkish troops are consolidating their position and supporting anti-regime rebels, then the regime's position is threatened. So there's no way that they can back off. There is no way that the Turks can back off. So I don't see this winding down. I see this exponentially increasing in terms of a conflict.
Syria has each and every right to deploy forces in its territory, be it Afrin or elsewhere. In this respect, international law is on the Syrian government's side.